Right now, somewhere in Texas, a single building is being wired to pull more electricity than a small city. Not a factory, not a steel mill, a computer. Everyone keeps asking the same question. Will AI get smarter? It is the wrong question. What decides how big AI gets is not intelligence. It is iron, copper, water, and time. And the world is running short on all four. Here is the truth nobody puts on a slide. AI is not a cloud. It has a body, a brain you cannot buy, organs that boil, a throat that drinks rivers, and veins on the floor of the ocean. After today, you will never hear the word cloud the same way again. The International Energy Agency says it plainly. A typical AI data center already uses as much power as 100,000 homes. The biggest ones being built right now will use up to 20 times that. 2 million homes for one machine. And by the year 2030, America is on track to use more electricity running computers than it uses to make all of its steel, its aluminum, its cement, and its chemicals combined. So today we are going to cut this thing open, one organ at a time. Because before AI can get any smarter, something has to get built. Real physical things, and everyone has a hard limit. So let us follow the machine from the inside out, starting where it begins. With a single chip. It starts with something the size of a postage stamp. One chip. Designed by NVIDIA and made, almost entirely, by a single company on one island in Taiwan. One of NVIDIA's top chips can draw up to 700 watts at full load. More than a microwave running flat out, all day, every day, never switching off. But the real bottleneck is stranger than the chip itself. It is the glue, the delicate step that stitches the chip to its memory, called advanced packaging. Just 4 companies handle around 90% of it, by value, and those lines are booked solid into 2026. So even with unlimited money, you cannot simply order more brains for the machine. You get in line, and these chips never work alone. You take 72 of them and bolt them into one cabinet. NVIDIA calls it a rack. One rack is basically a supercomputer in a box. It costs around $3 million, and it pulls roughly 120 kilowatts of power. All packed into the space of a refrigerator, and that is where the first wall appears, heat. For decades, computers were cooled with air, fans. But air gives up somewhere around 20 to 30 kilowatts per rack. Push past that, and the fans start burning a punishing share of your power just to move air around. So the industry did something that sounds insane. It started running water directly over the chips. In the newest racks, around 90% of the heat is carried away by liquid. The servers have literally become boilers. Now take that one rack and multiply it by tens of thousands. Fill a hall the size of a stadium, that is one data center. And now it has to be fed. Feeding it means electricity. And that is where the machine hits the slowest wall of all, the real world. A company can throw up a data center in about 18 months. But the things that power it do not move at that speed, not even close. Start with the transformer. It is a boring grey box that steps electricity up and down so it can travel safely. Every data center needs lots of them. Today, ordering a large one means waiting 2.5 to 4 years. Before the pandemic, less than a year. And the special steel at the core of every transformer is made in the entire United States by essentially one company. One. Then there is the grid itself. If you want to plug a big new power source into the American grid, the average wait to connect is now about 4.5 years. Just to stand in line, so add it up. The building takes 1.5 years. The transformer takes up to 4 years. The grid connection, 4.5. A new nuclear plant will not arrive before 2028. The small reactors everyone is excited about will not really show up until after 2030. The demand is here now, the power is not. So what happens? Something nobody planned for. The grid starts breaking its own rules. Coal plants scheduled to close are staying open instead. Since the start of 2025, at least 15 of them delayed their own retirement. The biggest maker of gas turbines is booked solid into 2029. And a nuclear plant that shut down years ago, 3 Mile Island Unit 1, 835 megawatts, is being brought back to life with all of its power for 20 years, already promised to Microsoft. They are aiming for 2028. Here is what that costs you. On the largest power grid in America, serving 65 million people, the price of simply guaranteeing enough power jumped by more than 800% in a single auction. Plant closures and new market rules played a part. But the surge in data center demand was a big driver. You never signed up for an AI subscription, but if you live in the wrong place, you may already be paying for one. Which brings us to what the machine drinks. To stay cool, a large data center can pull through 3 to 5 million gallons of water a day. Google's data centers alone went through more than 6 billion gallons in 1 year. In dry regions, a lot of that water does not come back. And the jobs. Once a data center is running, it employs almost no one. Virginia, the data center capital of the world, looked into this. One of these buildings might need around 1,500 workers to build, and then just a handful to run it. That is the tension at the center of all this. A data center asks a lot from a place: power, water, land. But the footprint it leaves behind is surprisingly small, so all across the country, people are starting to say no. By late 2025, local opposition had blocked or delayed tens of billions of dollars in projects. The number one fear, again and again, was water. But all of this, the chips, the power, the water, only matters if these machines can talk to each other. And the way they do that is the strangest part of the whole story, because it is hidden at the bottom of the sea. More than 95% of all the data crossing between countries does not travel by satellite. It travels through cables on the sea floor, more than 600 of them, over 1.5 million kilometers of glass and steel. And here is what quietly changed. It used to be phone companies that owned those cables. Now it is big tech. Google lays its own private cables across whole oceans. Meta has announced a single cable that will wrap more than 50,000 kilometers around the planet, built openly to feed AI. But this floor of the internet is fragile. Around 200 cables are damaged every year. You have probably seen the frightening headlines. Sabotage in the Baltic Sea, ships dragging anchors near Taiwan. But here is the honest part, the part those headlines usually skip. When investigators actually examined the damage, several of those cuts turned out to be accidents. Bad weather, broken equipment, sloppy seamanship. Not war, just the ordinary fragility of one machine stretched across the planet. So step back and look at the whole body at once. The chip you cannot get, the rack that boils, the hall that drinks, the transformer no one can deliver, the cables in the dark on the sea floor. And remember that building in Texas, pulling more power than a city. It was never one building. It is one machine, eating the world one town, one river, one power line at a time. The hard part was never the intelligence. We are not writing software. We are pouring the largest physical machine in human history. And the limit is no longer how clever it can be. It is whether the real world can be built fast enough to feed it. Every part of it is its own story, and we are going to take them apart, one by one, here. So here is the real question for you. A data center wants to build next door. It will pour billions into your county and pay enormous property taxes. But it will use your water, lift your power bill, and leave almost no permanent jobs. Do you take the deal or do you fight it? Tell me below, and tell me what would change your mind. I read the replies, and I want to know where you stand.